Watching the Sunday morning talk shows and hearing the usual arguments about the superiority of the Obama or Romney economic plans, it was striking how the media and partisans on both sides, as usual, just missed the point. The talking heads keep arguing about whether to extend the Bush tax cuts for some or all taxpayers, the lifting or lowering of tax rates, reduction of tax loopholes, the spending cuts each side would make. And they debate how all of these moves would affect tax revenues and, of course, jobs. But there was one word entirely missing from the debate, and it's the single most important element, the mother's milk of a sound economy: growth. In consecutive weeks, we received bad economic news. First, an anemic 1.5% growth rate in the last quarter, then an unemployment rate rising to 8.3%. But it was the unemployment numbers that generated the great bulk of media coverage, when it should have been the growth rate, because growth is a cause and unemployment an effect. Growth is not sexy to discuss. It isn't a wedge issue that stimulates entertaining debate. It's not controllable. You can't legislate a certain growth rate. And it's not reliable. The growth rate changes from quarter to quarter. Our most recent 1.5% growth rate is a full 2.5% smaller than just 6 months before, and half the rate most economists set as the minimum necessary to lower unemployment. But economic growth is the byproduct, the bottom line of all the other economic decisions made by the federal government. The first question that should be asked about any legislation regarding the economy should be, how will it affect the GDP, the gross domestic product, the sum total of all goods and services produced in the U.S. economy? In the wake of the Occupy movement and the rhetoric about the so-called 1% and 99%, there's much talk about fairness these days. But America's founders understood that real fairness is ultimately achieved when government policy generates a climate that encourages the free market to expand and create plentiful jobs. And that can only be achieved with, or reflected in, robust economic growth. Plentiful jobs mean abundant tax revenues, which drive down budget deficits and stabilize interest rates and the value of the dollar. How to best achieve economic growth? There, of course, is the rub. History has consistently demonstrated that stimulating or flooding the market with tax dollars or borrowed dollars does not promote real growth. But 3 times in the last 50 years, presidents have cut income tax rates, and the result each time was more, not less, economic growth, more, not less, jobs, and yes, more, not less, tax revenues. In the wake of his income tax reductions, it was John F. Kennedy who said, "A rising tide lifts all boats." Kennedy and the other tax-cutting presidents understood that the economy is not static, but dynamic, energetic, ever-changing, volatile, and dependent on growth, something most of the chattering class, enamored with politics at the expense of policy, either fails to comprehend or chooses not to discuss.